All right. I'm just going to go ahead and jump in. Yeah, if you're joining me live or if you're watching this after the fact, just want to say, hey friends, glad to have everyone jump in for a little bit of impromptu type drawing here. What I've got up on screen right now is actually just something that I've been working on outside of YouTube, but I thought it would be fun to throw down a few characters over the lunch hour and just kind of do a little bit of a live stream. I've never actually done this before, so I have no idea where this is going to go or how it's going to work. But if you're joining along live, I do have the live chat open. I will do my best to keep an eye on that as it goes. So if you've got any questions along the way, I will do my best to answer as much as I can. A little bit of background on this, and I'm just going to kind of draw and talk at the same time here. But this is a project that I've been working on. I've been doing a lot of sans serif type lately, and that's fine. But I needed a break from it. I needed to do something a little bit different. I thought, what the heck? I'm going to give a sans serif a go, or a serif a go, and just see what happens. So that's pretty much where this has come from. There really isn't probably too much that's exciting about this per se. I don't know that it's really meant to be super exciting or anything of that nature, but yeah, just something to change things up a little bit. Try a few different things and see what I can do. I did opt for a little bit of a fun shape with the serifs as well. Um, just something angular. I've done a lot of curvy things and pieces too, so I think it was just kind of fun to change stuff like that up a little bit as well. Um, so yeah, for this M here, this is something that I've been debating what to do for some time. I probably started this typeface. It's been at least a few months now, and I just kind of I come back to it when I can, but um, yeah, it's one of those things where I have some motivation to do some work, and then after a while I just kind of bounce away from it for a little bit and then come back to it. So that's some of this is probably going to be just me trying to remember where I left off with things. We'll see how that works out. Um, but right now I'm just focusing on getting some stroke stuff set up here. Actually jumping back to the N, I'm going to borrow some parts, because what I realized was I want the thinner stem on that side, which is probably going to work a lot better. And then on this side where the stem goes down, obviously that's going to be a little bit thicker. So let's try and get some of this lined up here. And I'm just going to mimic this top part. So I think that looks a little bit better now. I don't really think I had any specific other things here. So I did about 199 going that way. Obviously I got it that way. 170, 147. So basically what that's suggesting to me or telling me is maybe about 20 points difference between probably even more than that, maybe like 50 points, I think. I guess it kind of depends on where I draw the line. So 45 to 200, that's 55 actually. So let's see, 170 minus 55 would be 115. Does that sound right? I think. Figuring this out as I go. The other thing that I've got to do here is kind of center this up as well. So I'm going to go and do that. And I think, let's see here. So I want to keep this at 199. Actually, probably an easier way to do this. Since these angles are going to change anyway, what I'm thinking, I'll actually go this way. I want to make a nice point here that isn't too heavy. So I think what I'm going to try is to squish it this way. We'll just kind of get those points to line up. Do they want to line up? There we go. So we get just kind of that corner to overlay there. Now I know these are probably a bit offset too, at least. I'm going to try and get this visually centered in a way. I think that's fine. Perfect. So now what I need to do is go back and I'm actually inclined to leave the 151, this one here, the same width. And I'm comparing this stroke to this stroke because both of these are upward strokes of sorts. But this green one that's going from top left to bottom right here, this one definitely needs to beef itself up a little bit. So I think what I'm going to do for this one, I'm actually going to maybe just make a cut there. I think I can use this point down here too. So what my trick is going to be is I'm going to step that down a little bit. Let's see, how many did I do? I did 20 units. Step that up a little bit. So that gets me to 165. And the other thing I'm going to do actually as well. Oh, and I noticed I made a little error there. Actually, this might work to my advantage. Let's try this first. So I'm going to bump that up there. So this probably makes it too thick. A little too thick, maybe. I'm going to put another M off to the side here so I can edit and see what I'm doing at the same time. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag this over. I'm going to see, I think this is, yeah, it's fairly straight. I think that'll be fine. So actually, because I didn't notice that, I'm actually going to remove that point. So it is going to have a little bit of a taper there. And then I'm just going to bump those 2 points. It's probably still a little, actually maybe not. So 185-ish. Yeah. What was my L here? So that was 175. So just to confirm, pretty sure actually that's 171. So that might be what's throwing me off a little bit with my point placement here. So yeah, just the tiniest bit. So I'm just gonna go through and probably just bump this out a little bit. I don't even know. I might not even have to move anything else around. So I think that's probably what was doing it to my eye there, because what I was looking at was how thick this line was visually, and then comparing it to this stroke here. Actually, going back to what I did with the N, because that was 199, I think I'm actually going to bump this back out a tad. So that gets me to 195. I think that's going to actually work a little bit better. I think that looks more like what I was envisioning. And then I'm just going to actually back up. I'm going to use the H instead, just to keep things consistent. So there we go. Capital M. Not too bad. Just kind of jumping around here a little bit. So one thing I haven't done is I haven't created the O yet. Maybe I'll do that next year, because I really should get some control characters set up. And yep, similar to what we did before with designing a sans serif typeface, I'm just going to go through and borrow the lowercase o to start, and then to figure out my overshoot. So again, I think, oh, as I accidentally click out there. What did I do? I think, did I do 20? No, I did 30. So I've got to go 30 points above my cap line. So the top of this square is going to be what I'm aiming for here, and I'm just going to try and get that as close as I can. Or in this case, spot on. And just to give myself some space as well, I'm going to update my metrics there. Perfect. So now that I've got that set up, going back to my H, and then let's see, 130. Actually, we'll do it this way, rather than trying to remember numbers. So I've got 135. I've got 175 for the sides here. So we'll get those two in place. Copy and paste. We'll do a little flippy flip. Now, what I'm expecting is if I just straight up were to do this, it's probably going to end up looking a bit wonky. Of course, it also wants to snap to everything as well, which is fine. I think that actually, yep. So that snaps everywhere I wanted it to. Now the thing is that's going to end up looking probably pretty thin next to the H. I know this is probably difficult. Actually, here, we'll do this. I'm going to remove these points real quick. So if I back up a little bit, that O does look a bit light next to the H, which is, I guess, kind of expected. So I think what I'm going to do, hopefully to remedy that, I'm going to bump in 20 points in each direction. We'll try and do some level of, I guess, science to this. I'll make sure I got the top two. There we go. And we'll just go through, again, snap the points to all of my directions. This might be a little bit more what I was looking for. So jumping back out a little bit. Maybe I went too much now. Let's see if the Goldilocks rule applies. So we're going to back it off by 10 points. And then we'll just see where this leads us. There we go. And flipping all of the boxes off again. That actually looks quite a bit better now, I think. And again, this is just kind of a rough draft and a rough pass. Now, the next thing that I'm looking at is this does feel a little on the wide side. So I'm just going to go 20 points there, and I'm actually going to update my metrics as well. I'm still using the H metrics for this, which is fine. I think that might be enough, though, just to give it a little bit of height to it and just not feel like I upscaled my lowercase o. The other thing that I'm just going to go and check here real quick, I'm just going to throw Speed Punk on. I think my curves look fairly well here, so perfect. And then the last thing I'm going to do, so for the N I did 110 for the straight side and 100, so it was about a 10-point difference there. I guess we'll just keep it for now. I may decide, actually, I'm going to back up, I'm going to change my mind. I think I'm going to do 10 points less for each, so That's 90 and 100. If I just do a quick word here, I know my kerning isn't going to be where I want it to be for this, which is totally fine. But that seems to be playing nice. So I'll just go through quick and do a quick keyboard shortcut to update all of my metrics there. So what's cool now is now that I've got that O shape, I can go in and get a few extra things done here. So yeah, my goal with this was, I guess in addition, I should maybe explain a little bit more of my backstory, was as much as I also wanted to do a serif just to kind of break the monotony of things. One of the things that I've been doing with this is just kind of seeing, is there a way that I could draw a serif, but give it that clean look that that we typically associate with sans serifs? Because lately I think a lot of people have seen that. Actually, I don't like that. Try something different here. But lately, I think a lot of people have noted that it tends to be a lot of typefaces out there, like sans serif typefaces, that push this clean agenda where everything is simple and minimal and modern. And I have seen some serifs take that approach, which is fun to see. But the challenge for me was to see if there was a way that I could perhaps replicate that. So that was one of the other things with this typeface, was just going down that direction and seeing, it's going to be a serif naturally, but is there a way that we can kind of capture some of those ideas or feelings that other sans serif typefaces are doing? And when I jump back here, when I get done with the Q, I can show off the lowercase a is one example, and even the lowercase g, where I'm experimenting with the idea of having things like a single story letter form instead of the traditional double story that you would expect for each of those. And it's, I think, producing some interesting results so far. It's interesting for me that as I've been doing this, I was expecting that it would be easy, that I wouldn't get caught in looking at my lowercase g or something and going, well, only if it was a double story or something like that. And it's certainly possible. I may go back and decide to do an alternate, but really I think I can probably accomplish a pretty good, just simple looking face here. So yeah, the Q is fun. And whether you're watching this for the first time or not, if it's in the chat or if it's in the comments, let me know if you're interested in seeing something like this down the road. So typically I aim for Friday releases, although this week I opted for a Wednesday release on my weekly video, just to shake things up, try some different things out a little bit. But I'm curious to know if people have an interest in potentially more of these live streams, just something fun, something different. Maybe it works for your lunch hour, possibly. I'm all ears. I've always wanted to use this channel as a little bit of an experimentation with how type is presented, especially how the type design process is presented. So it's kind of one of those anything goes type deals, and I'm always open to that. So this Q, and I'm honestly not really sure how I'm feeling about it. It's got some potential. I'll give it that. But I don't know that I'm feeling how this shape is working out for me. Part of me is wondering if maybe I need to revisit this at some other point, and maybe I will, just to kind of keep things moving along here a little bit. It's just not completely there yet, which is kind of a bummer. I was hoping that would have moved along a little bit more. So just as I've got this up on my screen here, and I'll go ahead and make this a little bit larger. So like what I was talking about earlier with the simplicity, you'll notice definitely like in the lowercase a. I guess I don't have the G done yet, but the plan is to make it similar to like the lowercase q here, where it's just got a nice hook and just that clean single story appearance to it. I have been having fun with the serifs as well, just adding a little bit of character there, trying to use that as my way to jazz things up a little bit and just make it a little bit more exciting. I think so far that's coming along pretty well. So I'm reasonably pleased with the direction that I'm going. So next up, I think I'm kind of jumping around too. I'm not really making any point to make sense of some of these things, but I think I'm going to jump over to the C. Now for the C, I'm just trying to figure out, I really don't have, I guess, a rule, if you will, set up yet as to how this is going to open up. Case in point, I could do a horizontal line and end it that way, or I could kind of cut it off at more of an angle, which I'm probably inclined to do here, I think. And then it's just determining what that angle is going to be. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to throw a rectangle out here, and maybe we'll just start with a 45-degree rotation to see where things would land. So it looks like, and this is just kind of a rough guess too, but maybe somewhere there is approximately a 45-degree angle. I'm going to end up changing that anyway, so I don't even know why I need to put too much of an effort on that. So we'll chop it there and there, so that opens up the C. And the other thing that I'm going to do is, oops, not rotate, but I'm going to grab a serif off of my N here, and then flip this and rotate it. Because one thing that I had in mind when I was constructing this was I thought it would be really cool to have this little ear going on with the C. I think that would just be a really neat feature. So let's figure out how this might work. So what I'm going to do to start is kind of ignoring the bottom for a moment. I'm going to put an O to the other side as well here. So this is going to be a little bit narrower than the O. Maybe something like that. And I think I'm actually going to bump the top of the serif up a little bit as well. Now the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove my Bezier curves for a moment there. What I want is to have that point come there. Then I'm going to put my Bezier handles back in. And the reason that I do this is it recalculates it so I can have a better shot at a smooth curve here. And if I throw Speedpunk on as well, just to kind of help me out a little bit. Just to try and get a nice curve there. So something like that. On the bottom, that actually gets pretty thick. But what I'm doing for that is I'm just going to kind of have that taper in a bit more. So if I push this up, I believe that lines up to 90. So that still gets a little bit on the thick side. I'm actually going to give this another run here real quick. Maybe it just needs to be just an ever so slight curve instead. Let's give that a shot here. So push that up and that up. And that really doesn't do much for me either. These can be a little bit cranky to get right. And this may be that I just need to adjust this point altogether, which is totally fine if that works out. But yeah, maybe something of that nature. Now let's see here. I'm going to hold down the shift and the option key, so I'm keeping this Bezier point in the same spot here, because I do like how this curves around and it is consistent with the O. But I think that'll work. Actually, one thing I'm going to do, we're going to go a little bit bold here. I'm actually going to bump that in a little bit. Maybe that actually ends up being my solution. Yeah, I think I actually like that a little bit better. That's probably all it needed. So the top of that's actually looking, I think, pretty decent. So the bottom portion of this then, just to sort this out, I'm going to do the same like I did for the top here, and then just try and figure out, I do want this just to curve up a little bit farther than here, so the bottom is going to stick out a little bit more. Let's give that a go and see what happens. So we'll line up that point and that point. And then if I grab each of these two, so immediately what I'm seeing in my little preview side here is, if you notice, it seems to keep a similar width, but if I were to keep drawing that line, it actually creates a little point there, and I need to get rid of that point. So to do that, I'm going to just carefully move that down, again holding options so that it keeps my Bezier point where I wanted that to be. And just kind of curve that in that way. Again, kind of similar to the top, I might be able to kind of bump this around a little bit. And maybe use Speed Punk to my advantage here. And just give it a little bit more curve, kind of get that a little bit smoother. So I don't think that's too terrible. For now, again, I'm probably going to go with the lowercase n for that side, because this does end a little bit in a sharper manner. I'd say that's pretty good though. I'm reasonably pleased with that. I think it curves around and it ends fairly nice. So next up, since I guess we're already kind of in that zone, I think the the E is probably the next obvious one to make. So what'll be nice about this is I don't need the serif, but what I do know is I can leave this little tail here. I think that'll work pretty well. Before I jump into that too far though, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to narrow, so I'm using my O, I'm going to narrow it up just a touch. And then what I'm also going to do is take this inner circle and then just bump that back out, and all I'm doing is lining up these 2 points here. And then as far as the crossbar of this goes, this is going to be a little bit thinner than the top up here, which is fine. But we'll just kind of bump around a little bit. And at least to start, I think that's going to be okay. And then visually, I'm also keeping my eye down here too, because I am designing this for smaller point sizes. So I kind of like keeping my preview a bit on the tinier side here. But I'm just kind of going for roughly a visual halfway point. And then similar to the C, I want this probably to feel a little bit even with where the top portion of the E ends here. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to make a couple rough cuts just to open the shape up to start. So that at least gets us going. And I'm not going to worry about the top of the C here, that's a moot point. But one thing that I am going to do, I think I'm going to do, so when this curves around, you do kind of want it to eventually get to a point where it goes straight and then straight down into the square here, or to that midpoint. I don't know that I want it to go super straight right away. So I think what my plan here is going to be is maybe cut it about there and there. I'm going to get rid of that bottom portion. I also don't even need those anymore. And I'm just going to grab this whole chunk here and move it over, maybe even up as well. So what the plan then is, probably a little bit easier to do it this way. So I'm holding down Option, which you can't see the top portion of that. Actually, do this real quick. Try one more time. There we go. That's what I was looking for. So I'm holding down Option just to keep my curve up here. I don't know that I really wanted to disrupt that too much. But what I'm going to do then is I'm going to grab these 2 points just to keep everything in unison there. And then, let's see, it's not gonna snap for me. I guess that's fine. We'll do it this way, and just so I have a point that I can draw from. And just looking over at my chat, thank you, Octacade. Hopefully I'm pronouncing your name right. I appreciate the kind words. I'm glad to hear you're learning a lot, and yeah, hopefully inspiring you to maybe dive in and do a little bit of type design yourself if you haven't already. That's awesome. So thanks so much. Perfect. So yeah, jumping back to the E here. So it does get a little bit straight right about here, but I think that's about what I want. It is a little bit goofy too, looking at, effectively we still got the top of the C up there. So for the bottom then, I think what I'm going to do is maybe I'm going to do my best to just kind of replicate this for now, and then make sure that I grab the right handles, of course. But I think what I can do is just kind of mimic that shape without actually having to make it a direct component. So just removing the C there, if I grab the E, I would say that's a pretty fair go at it. The other thing that I'm going to do is maybe just bump that whole top chunk over. Just throw Speedpunk back on here too while I'm at it. So again, just kind of smoothing some of those curves out a little bit. And the thing too with letters like this, usually we want to keep a little bit more weight, if you will, to the bottom of the letter so that it feels like it has some direction. I'm actually going to narrow the top a little bit too. We're kind of going for almost like a triangle shape. So if I were to set this, if this was like a physical object and I was setting it on a table, that it would want to write itself up this way. And then width-wise too, like if I look, I've got the word eco here a little bit. You know, that's starting to give me an idea of kind of you know, the character widths and how everybody's relating to each other here. So yeah, if I just actually write the word out, eco. So I mean, technically speaking, these letters aren't the exact same width as each other, but I want them to look the same width as each other, if that makes sense. And I think I'm succeeding there. I think. Keyword. Perfect. Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. As far as let's see here. Yeah, type design definitely is a bit daunting at first, and to be honest with you, this is a journey that started for me, I think, about 10 years ago, and yeah, just like you, I started in Illustrator as well. I was used to it. That's what I learned in college. I didn't have FontSelf, and if you haven't checked that video out yet, it's I think a good deep, well, I shouldn't say deep dive, but it's a good kind of just overview of what you're able to do with that. As far as making the strokes of your letters look right, yeah, line weight is a huge struggle even for me. I do know that there are some apps, or excuse me, some extensions out there if you have glyphs. Let's see if I can even find it. I don't even know if I have it. I want to say it was something, yeah, heat map, that's what it is. So if I'm going to turn Speedpunk off here. So one thing that's kind of helped me out, it's a little bit of a cheat, but what heat map does is it actually kind of draws a little, I guess, heat map, for lack of better words here, that would show you how your strokes are coming along. So if something kind of gets out of touch or whatever, it just gives you some extra visual cues to help draw things like this out. But to turn that off real quick, I mean, one thing that's helped me as far as keeping stroke widths consistent is anytime that I can, I'm drawing using my two tools here, the square or the rectangle tool or the circle tool. So for something like the H, I mean, there's the obvious with these parts here, but when I initially started on this, the curved part where it gets a little bit trickier, one of my dirty little secrets here, I think I drew a circle, and I'm just holding down the shift key to keep it constrained here to start. But what I did was I just kind of, and I'm just loosely lining this up for the sake of illustration, but I drew two overlapping circles like this, and then just being able to scale them and push them around, so you can start to see that shape appear that I would eventually want. And so what's nice about this then is it keeps kind of a technically perfect curve. Of course, you'll also note that it's not that way anymore. I did go back and I did refine this, but that does tend to be an easy way just to kind of help keep strokes somewhat uniform. Even if you go back, if I just go off to the side here, even if you were to redraw this shape, and I'm sure you've seen some other type designers do this as well, where they might do something like this and create the shape that way, and then of course throw all the handles in here, and I'm just using the option button to click around those. But one other trick that I've seen too, and I think you can even use the layers if you want, but you can draw the shape you're after like a circle in the background here. And then one other trick that I've had is just using that to line up. I guess I went too far over on my artboard here. Move it back over. There we go. But to move it back over a little bit here, and then just take these points, and then all you're doing is just lining things up a little bit so that it starts to look right. Now for things like this, where you would have a point that isn't coming down here, and let's say you don't want that point going down there, really all my trick is just to try and line this up the best that I can. This point might be kind of free floating, but this point, or this Bezier curve up here at the top, as I grab the right one. I'll just move that over a little bit. But what I can do is I can kind of use that to just nudge things around in a little bit, and hopefully that gets me to where I want things to be. So then same with this side, and then if I pull this shape away, you start to see that circle comes about. So those are a few tricks that I have that have helped out a little bit. And then really it's just control characters. Your capital H, your capital O, your lowercase n, your lowercase o. I've seen type designers do this, and even me when I'm doing things outside of YouTube videos, just really making sure that I'm getting those shapes to look right, because there's so much you can take off of these shapes as far as the geometry and the shapes and whatnot of other letters. The classic one, obviously taking the N and extending it into an H. The more you can get these 4 letters to look right, the easier it is for so much of the rest of the alphabet that you're doing. And what's nice is this is the case whether you're in Illustrator or you're in Glyphs, is that a lot of type design is just kind of ripping yourself off, which is really the dirty secret at the end of the day. It does take a little bit of practice though, and to be able to kind of train your eye to see those curves and whatnot. Even the other thing you could do as well is just to take something like a circle here. Just using little things to kind of help yourself measure stuff out and whatnot. So when I used to draw type in Illustrator, this is what I would actually do a lot, where I would take a circle like this, and I would just overlay it on key points of my letters. So actually, even a better idea, I'll go over to the O here real quick. So I'd overlay this in the corner, and I'd pick something like magenta or something like that, just so that it stood out against my letter form. But then, to do that and then overlay it, as my mouse gets out of the way here, but to overlay that over some other shapes as well. Apparently, there we go. So things like that help. The other thing too, when you can, and something that I did with the O here, there's other times too where if you can at least get one side looking right, it makes up for the other side. So if I take the O and I just chop off one half of it here, really all this O is made up of is 2 halves that are joined together. And so if I take this and I'm going to flip it in both directions, and then just move this back over. So this is one thing that Glyphs has, is when I snap this over, it reconnects all my lines up. Now I gotta readjust my line direction so it knocks the shape out. But really that's what the O is just 2 halves that are mirrored in both directions and then spliced together. So there's little tricks like that where you don't have to draw the whole letter, which sometimes can help for the making the strokes look right. So that was kind of a long-winded answer, but hopefully that helps you out a little bit. But yeah, for me, a lot of this just came down to practice. So, excellent. Yeah, happy to help as well. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the comment section as well of any of my videos. I'm always looking to help people out with that kind of stuff. Yeah, I haven't used FontLab either, to be honest. I've primarily been in Glyphs, RoboFont, and then I was experimenting with FontSelf. I've also got FontForge and BirdFont on my computer, which I don't know that... I guess BirdFont probably isn't that much of a mainstream program. I know FontForge is pretty popular with a lot of people. I have been wanting to dig into FontLab more, though, and that Font Audit actually sounds like it would be a pretty useful tool. In general, though, like from now, I guess where things are at now with type versus 5-10 years ago when I was playing around in this stuff, it seems like there's a lot more tools at our disposal now, which is really great to kind of help us see through some of these common issues. And there's been a lot of awesome people that have really put forward some cool things on that. So Yeah, but that's great. And honestly, if you ever have something to share, I mean, we'd love to see it. If you either want to shoot me an email or even just share it in the comments section. I'm always excited to see what people are doing. Well, with that, my goal was to keep this to a lunch hour, so I wanted to thank everybody for joining the live stream today. Or if you're watching this at a later date, thanks for watching the whole thing. I may bring this back up at a later date. We'll just kind of see what the response is, but I think this is something kind of fun. You know, break up the lunch hour a little bit and just kind of shoot the breeze about type. So yeah, appreciate it. And just a quick shout out to Sham there in the comments as well. Always fun to see a familiar face. So yeah, thanks for the heads up there. Fantastic. I'm just going to jump over to my title card here. So yeah, as always, thanks everybody for joining today. And yeah, I'm going to try and do more, maybe probably do more of this. I am on Instagram at daniel.nisbet. I can throw that in the comment section when we're done here. But yeah, if you want to see more of this, by all means, let me know. And today was kind of impromptu, but maybe I'll do more of a heads up at a later date. So this was a lot of fun. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and I will catch you next time.